Hello, my name is Gail Seiler, and I'm honored to be here on behalf of Betrayal Project USA. We are a victim led organization dedicated to exposing institutional betrayal, crimes against humanity, in related to COVID 19, honoring those we've lost, and pursuing justice for the crimes committed under the guise of public health. You can learn more about our work, view victim stories, tell your own story, or get involved by visiting our website at betrayalprojectusa.org. That's betrayalprojectusa.org. You can also follow us on Rumble, BitChute, and X, formerly known as Twitter, by searching for Betrayal Project USA or clicking on the links on our website. Today, I have the privilege of speaking with Anna and Heidi, who Anna's sister was killed in a hospital in California, and Lupe was Heidi's friend. Um, and so they're going to be telling the story about what happened to Lupe in this hospital on American soil. And so, thank you for being here. Thank you for the courage in sharing your story publicly. So let's start from the beginning and tell us about Lupe.
Thank you, Gail, for inviting us and giving us the opportunity to talk about my sister and to share her story. First of all, my sister was a mother, a sister, a daughter. She was 48 years old when she passed away. She was a director of a program for a UC campus here in California. She loved the Lord. She fought for pro-life. She cared for her community. She ran for office. She wanted to change, the world. She wanted to change opinions. She wanted to change, she wanted a better life for her family, for her son. At the time she had a 16-year-old son. She passed away September 28th, was 4 years ago, this September, when she passed. And it's been hard. We miss her. Her son misses her.
And Heidi, when did you meet Lupe? Because you all were friends.
Yes. So we originally met when she was running for office. She spoke at a meeting that I was attending, and we connected, and we became great friends. We have kids the same age, and they ended up going to school together, and she was my best friend, and we miss her every day. She should be here. She should be here with her family. She should be here with her son. They stole her from us.
Yeah. So at some point, Lupe got sick. Correct. So tell us about that.
Well, she had been. Mateo got sick. My nephew. Mm-hmm. He got sick first, and then she got sick after he got sick. And I didn't know she had been sick. I thought it was just something minor. My mom told me that she had came over and she had not been feeling very well. Well, Mateo had been not feeling very well. All of a sudden I get a call from my sister, and she says, "Can you come and take care of Mateo?" And I said, "Why, what's going on?" And she said, "I'm not feeling well, and I think I have to go to the hospital."
And what day was this?
This was July.
August 4th.
Oh, August 4th. I'm sorry. She started to get sick in July. But this was August 4th. And I said, well, how bad are you feeling? Do you think it's COVID? And she says, I don't know. And I said, well, how sick are you feeling? And she said, well, I'm feeling pretty sick. I can't breathe. And I said, I think you need to call the ambulance. Because if you're feeling that bad, if you can't drive, if you can't move, if you can't, because basically she said she could barely even get up. So she decided to call the ambulance. And she decided what hospital she wanted to go to. She didn't ask me. She didn't tell me anything. She just directed them to Clovis Community Hospital, which in hindsight, I wish she wouldn't have, because they were not prepared. They didn't have anything. They were lower level, lower level of care for her. If she would have gone to a higher level of care hospital, maybe they would have done more for her.
Yeah, because Fresno Community's a trauma center, and they have an ECMO machine, and we have friends who survived
because of the ECMO.
Because of the ECMO, yeah, because it was able to, filter all the drugs that they gave them.
Let me ask you, did she go and try to get, and I don't know how much she knew at the time, or any of you knew about like the frontline doctor treatments and ivermectin or anything like that. Did she go to her regular doctor before the hospital, or just kind of got sick and went to the hospital?
Yeah, that I know of, she didn't know anything. I didn't know anything. We didn't know anything, so I don't think she went to her primary to try to ask. We just,
went to the ER.
Yes. And as soon as she got there, we were in constant communication. Right away, she mentioned that they made her feel really bad because she was not vaccinated. The doctors right away scolded her and just made her feel really bad, and kind of treated her like a second-class citizen because they found out she was
Yeah. She was discriminated against.
Yeah. So right away, she just said that they just treated her really bad. And it wasn't until the following day that she even got anything to eat, for when she was there. So it was really hard, because we couldn't go in and see her. We couldn't do anything. We were not even allowed to, we would barely allowed to even talk to her. And all of a sudden, like, the communication with her was like, it decreased, a lot, because she wasn't able to communicate. And during that time, I didn't even know what to do. Like, I would call the hospital and because she could communicate to a certain point, they didn't want to give me any information. So it was really difficult.
And at this point, did you have her son, where you were taking care of her son as well?
Yes.
And so that the lack of communication, was that because of the increasing the oxygen and the masks and the BiPAP?
They didn't put the BiPAP right away. They put they just had her on a higher level. Yeah.
Yeah.
You could right away, looking back, not at that time, but looking back now, she wasn't her. It wasn't her. She was.
They drugged her.
It was
upon arrival.
She was very. You could tell that she was lacking oxygen because she wasn't thinking properly. I would tell her, "I need you to put me on speaker when your doctor comes in. I need you to do that because I need to hear what they're telling you." And she wouldn't do that. And that wasn't like her. And it was almost like she was afraid of them.
Yeah.
Afraid of
upsetting them, or
yeah, I don't even know. Because when they finally moved her, the very first time they moved her to the ICU. They moved her to ICU. She wasn't intubated or anything. They moved her to ICU. when they had her on the CPAP.
On the BiPAP, yeah.
BiPAP, I was able to go see her, and she was up, she was awake. I mean, she wasn't intubated or anything like that. I have pictures of her.
Were you able to go into the room, or were you just able to watch, to look at her through the glass? Okay.
So everything was slow with her. Like, she would turn around and she'd look at me, and it'd take her a little while to react. So I knew that she wasn't well. Everything was very slow motion. Did you go see her during that time?
They wouldn't let anyone in.
No, not. But through the window, did you see her through the window when she was awake?
Yeah. Well, during her stay, I did. Not in the very beginning, though. Okay. I didn't even. Yeah, no, we could. Yeah.
She was there for like 2 days, and then they moved her back up. So it was very short, where they had her the first time in the ICU. The very first time she was awake, and then they moved her back up, and then.
Yeah, because she wasn't like totally, correct me if I'm wrong, Lana, totally confused. It wasn't until she got in the hospital. So they must have drugged her with something. Because she
wouldn't have been hypoxic if she was getting oxygen, but also the high levels of oxygen on the BiPAP do starve your body of oxygen, because you can't breathe out CO2. So
exactly. The first day, though, I'm talking about the first day when she was first like walked in, because she was
not confused.
She was fine, and then all of a sudden she's so confused. So yeah.
So so she went in on, I just so people know the timing. She went in on August 4th, 2021. So we're already a year and a half into COVID, when COVID hit America. And so it's not like it was new, and it actually is. And they still had these, a year and a half into it, they still had these draconian policies where you couldn't be with your loved one, like even when they're on a closed system. So she was there. When did she start to really take a turn for the worse? Because she wasn't getting better. The hospital certainly wasn't making her better. They were making her worse, it sounds like.
The day before they intubated her, she started to feel better, because she was even texting me, telling me, "I'm hungry. I want a hamburger. I'm feeling better." She goes, "My oxygen levels are better."
How long was she in the hospital at that point?
They intubated her September 3rd. Was it September 3rd?
I'm not 100% sure.
I think
was it 28 days?
Well, they said I believe they intubated her on September. So she went in August 4th, and I believe they intubated her September 3rd.
Yeah. So
September 2nd,
28 days.
So she was in there for a month before they, and what were they doing during that month? I mean, they gave her remdesivir, right? And so
2 rounds.
2 rounds, so 10 doses of remdesivir?
Yes. There was 2 rounds of remdesivir.
Wow. What else did they give her? They gave her baricitinib.
They gave her fentanyl.
Yeah, they gave her this many drugs.
Let me see if I can pull that up too.
Okay. Yep, that's one sheet. Yep, there's another.
So that's one sheet of all of the drugs that they gave her. Some of them very some of them I guess make sense. They gave her fentanyl. Oh my gosh. So fentanyl, midazolam.
She was on fentanyl continuously for a month and a half, and fentanyl is 100 times stronger than morphine.
And the thing with fentanyl is that it attacks your lungs.
Yeah.
That's what it does. And what was her problem? Her problems was her lungs. That's the reason why she went in to begin with. She could not breathe. So why would you give them a drug that is going to severely trigger your lungs and attack your lungs? You know, that's
Right.
why it's all on billboards, you know, warning these youth, don't take fentanyl, because what does it do? It stops you from breathing. Yeah.
Right.
But
Right.
yet
So do some of these other ones like lorazepam, morphine, literally steals your breath. So,
and I know
okay.
she's feeling very panicked and anxious, and she kept telling me that she had a lot of anxiety, extreme amount of anxiety. She goes, I don't know what to do. So the nurse would tell me that they were giving her something for the anxiety to calm her down because she had a lot of anxiety. Well, I mean, who wouldn't? You're stuck in a hospital bed. You're not letting anybody come and visit you.
Yeah.
After 30 days, you're not testing positive anymore. Why aren't they letting you
Have visitors, right?
have a visitor? They didn't let me go in and see her until 2 weeks before she passed away.
So what was the reason they used for ventilating her? Because, I mean, you're a month into this. She's getting all of these drugs that aren't helping. What led to that? Do you know what led? So she wanted, she's like, yeah, I want a hamburger, and
I just remember texting her in the morning, and she just told me that she started bleeding. She was bleeding, but she was okay.
when she said she was bleeding, was that like through her nose?
Through her nose.
Yeah, because the high flow oxygen makes the blood clots in the nose
And then about 10 a.m. I didn't get any more texts from her. And then about 1 o'clock, I got a call from the hospital. I hated those calls. That she had been intubated. And it was my worst nightmare because I kind of had a feeling, in my gut that if that happened to her, that she was probably not going to come out of it.
Heidi, what do you think? What do you think the decline was? It because
I believe they force ventilated her. I believe they got money for ventilating her. I believe she didn't need to be ventilated. She was talking. If somebody can talk, you don't ventilate someone. She's hungry. She's feeling better. She's talking, and all of a sudden she's vented. I believe she was forced vented. I believe she was murdered overall.
I spoke to the nurse that ventilated her
mm-hmm.
The next day from the day that she was ventilated. So she told me that her levels had dropped. They kept dropping, and they kept dropping. And so they rushed to her room. And then they told her that they were going to take her down to ICU. On the way to ICU, her oxygen levels had dropped to 60. And it got really bad. So they asked her, do you want to be ventilated? And that she said yes, that she wanted to be ventilated. And so they rushed her back up to the room where she was. And then they had the doctor come up. And then that's when they ventilated her. And the day that that the day that they ventilated her, when they called me, I immediately went to go pick up my parents because I live an hour away. So I didn't want to call them up and tell them, hey, she's been ventilated. I wanted to tell them in person. So I drove down and I said, and I let them know that she had been ventilated. And I said, get ready, pack your bags. We're just going to go to the hospital. And so that's what we did. And on the way to the hospital, I get a call from the head nurse to tell me, the instructions, this is what's going to happen. This is the situation. And in the middle of the conversation, she told me, she said, well, it's just better if you just let her go. And I said, well, what do you mean by let her go? And she goes, well, if you just let her go naturally, it's just better if, you just come say goodbye and then we can just disconnect her. And I said, that's not going to happen. I said, I don't care what you have to do. I said, but you're going to keep my sister alive. I said, I don't even care if you have to crack her ribs. I said, but you are going to keep my sister alive. And I think it took her back because she was surprised that came out of my mouth.
Yeah.
She was expecting me to say, oh, okay, like to surrender. And I said, no, that is not going to happen. That's not going to happen. You're going to do whatever it takes to keep my sister alive. So at that point, I knew that I had to fight.
And this was day one.
This was day one.
This
was day one. The day they intubated her.
The day they intubated her. Yeah. So, and she was in the ICU because she was in the ICU for another 20 some days, right? So
25 days, I think.
I mean, she was so healthy.
Very healthy, very young, young. And so I mean, and I have to make the assumption, like with a lot of people who received all of those medications, like the Precedex and the Midazolam and all of that, like we saw in the Scott Shera trial, about the testimony about the metabolic acidosis, where those drugs, along with the the BiPAP, it does starve you of oxygen because you can't breathe out the CO2, and then your blood turns kind of like basically to acid, right? And so then your numbers drop. And so these hospitals didn't pay attention to the fact that it was the drugs and the high levels of oxygen that were actually the cause of people getting better and then not getting better. Plus 10 rounds of remdesivir is just absolutely crazy. I'm surprised that she even survived that. So she must have been incredibly strong to begin with. So the 2 weeks that she was on the ventilator, let's talk about that because a lot of things happened.
Yeah, she was on a ventilator longer than 2 weeks, just to clarify.
Yeah, it was like 3 weeks, right?
25 days.
25 days. Okay, 25 days. So she's on the ventilator. You're telling them, no, you're not going to sign a DNR. You're not going to, that's what they were after, right? Sign a DNR. Let's do palliative care so we get paid and we can end this. Because one of the things people don't necessarily understand, and we heard this yesterday from Nurse Rena as well, validating it, that there were these codes that allowed hospitals to be paid for 14-day chunks, right? So they would get paid for 14 days total. If they kill the patient in 5 days, they still get paid for 14 days. So it's all about money, right? And all the steps. So they're wanting you to sign this DNR. You said no. Keep my sister alive. How was she treated then?
It honestly, it just depended on the nurse.
Mhm.
There probably about, I don't know, we were there 12, 13 hours a day, just watching her from the window. Um, I was there sometimes. My parents would leave and I would go back and I'd be there till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, just on my knees praying at her window, asking the Lord to just save her, to save her.
At her window, inside or outside?
Outside. I was outside.
No one was allowed in.
No. She was on the first floor. So that's one thing I can be thankful for, that I was able to be at her window, and see her. Even if I couldn't touch her, I could be at her window and see her every day.
Heidi, did you see her during this time outside the window as well?
Yes, that they would move her around a lot, right? But yes, Anna called me when she knew that she was on the first floor, and I went there. And it's interesting because the hospital, and I don't know the correct terminology for this, but war tactics, they create mazes, right? So you don't recognize the place where your loved one was murdered. So they put up scaffolding, they put up tarps, they made mazes, for people to walk through. So she instructed me exactly where she was at. So I made it through all the mazes and everything. And I went to the window. I held a candle. I called her. I talked to her, right? She was communicating through text. And you could tell it took her 5-10 minutes just to write a text, but she would look around and you could tell she was extremely confused, because the drugs they were giving her and the oxygen, because I don't know the terminology, I'm sure your husband would. If you give somebody too much oxygen, it confuses you.
Yeah, right. Because it floods your brain. Um, but she was able to text while she was on the vent.
No, she wasn't on the vent. This was before.
This is the first time she's been.
All right, this was the first time. Okay, so she was. So yes, so she had to have been. I mean, she was being drugged because the anxiety drug. I mean, we saw it in the records, right? That she was getting those anxiety drugs and heavy doses of medications that would put you out. Even the remdesivir and the baricitinib will do that. So, but what about when she was vented? Was she on? She was on the first floor when she was vented, so you could go and I mean, you couldn't go and see her, but to me, it's a bit of a travesty that you have to stand outside,
Right.
try to make your way through scaffolding and all that stuff just to find her.
Right. They were remodeling, so they had everything fenced. So everything was actually gated. We snuck in, and they didn't tell us anything until I want to say about 2 weeks before she passed, that they were not allowing us to go into that area. Somebody said something, and families were no longer able to go to their window. But we still would go in and we would argue and fight with them because we were not going to let them not let us see our family.
Yeah.
Their excuse was, "Oh, we're remodeling and it's dangerous," and it was not true. There was nobody working there. There was nobody. We'd been there for a month. We hadn't seen anybody working there. It was just fenced off.
And, because the families would all be in front of their loved ones' windows, right? So they got to know each other. They would pray and everything. And there was Bob Bosley, right? His wife was in there at the same time, Sue. The chaplain came out and told Bob, that they're killing people in there.
Mhm.
So that's how you met a lot of these families. That's interesting. Um, Speaking of family, do you think so? Do you think that obviously you were a close family? Do you think that having family members, if they had allowed you and others in your family to be at her bedside in the beginning, how do you think that would have affected her? I mean, obviously, it takes away hope when you're isolated, right? So, but how do you think that would have affected her health and her ability to fight this?
Well, I think we could have advocated for her more, definitely. Even if she couldn't advocate for herself, we would have been able to advocate more for her. Um, we would have been able to see what was going on and even have probably pulled her out of the hospital, at any point. Um, but at that point, we had no access to her, absolutely zero access to her. We couldn't see her, physically see her. So we didn't know what was really going on. I didn't have an iPhone, so we would Zoom. But it was so hard because she didn't have the capability of really doing it at a certain point. And then when she had the CPAP and then the BiPAP, she couldn't talk anymore. So everything was through text. And then half of the time she wasn't even feeling up to texting, you know? So,
Yeah.
I got sick not too long ago. I mean, it's been a little while, but I got sick. I had like a cold or whatever. And I felt like so drained. And I was thinking, man, if she must have felt like 10 times worse than what I felt. And I didn't feel like texting. I didn't feel like talking to anybody. It's like, leave me alone. I just want to sleep it off. I can just imagine how she felt. And then we're constantly texting her, like, how are you? How are you? And she didn't feel like texting back because she just didn't feel good. But if we would have been allowed to be in there with her, we could have seen how she was, and we would have just let her rest, or we would have been able to monitor
Right.
what was given to her, what was being introduced to her, how she was being treated. One time she did tell me that there was this one nurse that came in, and she said I couldn't even feed myself. And she was so happy because one nurse took the time to come and feed her in the mouth because she couldn't even pick up her food. And she goes, I'm so grateful that she came in and she took the time to feed me in the mouth because I couldn't even lift up my spoon to feed myself. But many of them didn't have the heart anymore, I was at the ICU window. So in ICU, they don't allow a nurse to be with the patient for more than, I think, 3 days. Then they swap them out because they don't want them to get too attached.
Yeah.
So I think it's 3 days. I think 3 days they give them, and then they swap them out and they rotate them, and then they put somebody new. And I would see the level of care of some of the nurses and the level of care of some of the other ones. And it's just like when my sister decreased, I knew which nurse it was because I could see the way she was treating her. I could see the way she was just manhandling her, the way she was just she just had no care, no love, no nothing. And I could just see that she just didn't care for her. So it wasn't just, it was just like more like the nurses were running it more so than the doctors. The doctors were just stepping in and just overseeing, but the nurses were the real doctors, the real ones that were in charge. And then there were some nurses that I would see that, like I have one of them in my Bible because I pray for him, and I put his name on my Bible. And because I would see, he would come in and he would stand there and he would just observe my sister. And he did that with every single one of his patients. And I would watch him, and it wasn't just because I was there watching, because he was that type of a person. He wanted to make sure that he was giving that high level of care to every single one of his patients.
And that attention. Yeah.
And he's actually the one that caught when my sister's oxygen levels began to decrease in ICU rapidly. He's the one that caught that she had when you've been intubated for very long periods of time, you get these bubbles, and these bubbles burst, and then you get holes in your lungs. So the air just flows right out of your lung. So he caught that in one of her lungs right away as soon as it happened. And we had just left the hospital, and I get a call from him right away, and he said, "Hey, this is what happened. This is," I believe his name was Ryan or Kyle. I have him on my Bible. He said, "This is Ryan or Kyle. I just wanted to let you know that your sister was taken right now because she had a puncture in her lung." She goes, "Actually, there was 2 of them. And we took her in." He goes, "I noticed, I was watching her, and I noticed right away that all of a sudden we had to increase the levels of oxygen because she wasn't getting enough oxygen. So I knew something was wrong. So I immediately called the doctor, and they did an x-ray, and they found that she had 2 holes in her lung. So we took and we patched them up, and she's good now." And so right away I turned, we had just left probably about 45 minutes before, came right back. And I stayed there with my sister for maybe about another couple of hours after that. But I knew that when he was there with her, she was being taken care of.
Can you tell us about the second collapse lung?
So the second collapse lung happened.
How many days later?
This was about, I want to say about 3 days before she passed away. This was this nurse that I knew that was not treating her very well. I get a call that her oxygen levels had decreased a lot, and they were pumping in a lot of air into her. And basically they had told me, she's not going to last very much longer. You need to come and say goodbye. And we all rushed to the hospital. They let us all in. And we were there, and something just wasn't sitting right with me. And I said, why are they putting so much oxygen in her? Why are they putting so much oxygen in her? This isn't right. And then at that point, we had a friend there that's also, she was a chaplain, but she was at the chaplain for a different hospital. Not that one. They allowed her to go in because it's part of the same system. She was not a chaplain at Clovis. She happened to be there because I gave her a call, and I said, "Hey, this is what they told me. They told me that she's not going to make it." So we all went there to pray for her, and I said, "Something's not right. Something is not right." And I turned around to go talk to the doctor, and she looked at me. She goes, "What is wrong? What's happening?" I said, "I know she has a punctured lung." I said, I know it. I feel it. They need to check her lungs." And she goes, "I'll be right back. I'm going to go talk to the nurse." So she went and she talked to the nurse. And then right away they ushered us out because they were going to do an x-ray on her. They did an x-ray on her. And then we came right back in. And they said, "Yeah, she's got a punctured lung. It's collapsing." So then they ushered us back out. And then they said they were going to plug it, and then we could come back in. So that's what they ended up doing. But that was about 3 days before she passed away. I'm already fighting with the doctor. By this time I was already like.
So she had 12 hours with a collapsed lung, right?
Yeah.
And that went undetected. It took Anna, who isn't even a medical person, to diagnose
to tell them. Um, tell me about this picture here too. While we're
This is actually a picture that she took, and she sent it to me.
so Heidi, tell me about this picture. Why you took it and
Well,
when?
yeah,
This was.
Lupe took it with.
My sister took this picture.
Oh, she took.
Yes.
Okay, so this was before she was vented.
Yes.
Yes.
She took this picture in the first few days of when she was in the hospital. She said that they were coming in there. They were pulling blood. They were doing things, and she goes, "I don't even feel that they're doing it correctly. That they're
No.
me right. That they're." She didn't feel that they were. She felt mistreated. She felt mistreated.
Because even her hand is bruised here.
You can see eternal bleeding throughout her body over this day. I mean,
right. Even when she was in ICU, I walked in one day. The doctor, the communicable disease doctor, was there. She happened to be there when I was there. And I asked her because my sister all of a sudden developed a lot of little bumps on her body that were like liquid filled, just all over her body. Like she had a lot of little bumps. And I said, "What's this? What's going on with her body? How come she has all these little," it almost looked like little blisters, but all over her body, all over her legs, on her arms, on her hands. And I said, "What is this?" And she couldn't tell me what it was. She was like, "I don't know. I don't know what it is." I'm like, "Why does she have this? What are you giving her? What are you doing to her that caused this?" And she says, "I don't know. We're just going to have to test her to see what's going on. It could have been that she had a fever, and this is what is a result of the fever," is what she told me. But I don't know. That was her response to me.
Okay, so she was in the hospital total of, oh my gosh, it was about 2 months, right?
57 days.
Yeah.
57 days. And during that time, she got lots of medications that were not good for her. Baricitinib, blood thinner, well, blood thinners they give you but fentanyl, lorazepam, midazolam, morphine, paralytics, propofol, remdesivir, vancomycin, all of these, but no ivermectin, no hydroxychloroquine, no. I mean, she did give vitamins, but no.
I asked for vitamins. I asked for vitamin D. I asked for vitamin C, and they refused it before she was intubated.
Yeah.
I asked multiple times. I asked for, what do you call it? A family meetings.
Mm-hmm. An ethics meeting and a family meeting.
Every time I asked for a family meeting, the nurse would call me, or the social worker would call me to quiet me down, I guess. And I said, I asked for a family meeting because I need to know what's going on with my sister. This was before she was intubated, before she went to ICU, even the first time. I had asked.
Do you think they tried to tried to quiet you down for a few days because they didn't expect her to live as long as she did?
I didn't know that then. I know that now. I didn't know that then and the reason I was asking for the family meeting is because I have a friend. She was my sister's ex-sister-in-law who works for the hospital system as well. She was telling me, "Ask for this, tell them this, ask for that, ask for this. Don't," basically telling me, "Don't let them shut you up. Don't let them. You need to advocate for her. It doesn't matter. They work for you."
Mm-hmm.
She couldn't step up and say it because she worked for the hospital and she would be reprimanded. She worked it was the same system. It wasn't the hospital, but it was the same system. And when she showed up at the hospital, when I finally had the meeting, which was a few days before she, like the day before, was it the day before she passed away? I think it was the day before she passed away. They finally gave me the meeting, which I ended up in a shouting match with them, because they came in telling me that it was against the law for me to keep her alive. And I got into a shouting match with them. My dad was there. My mom was there. Mateo was there. I was there. The interpreter was there. There was the palliative care doctor was there, which I don't even know why they brought him in. He was not invited into the meeting. But the doctor, the one who signed her birth certificate, brought him in. And the chaplain from the hospital was there.
Death certificate, right? You mean he signed the death certificate, not the birth certificate?
I'm sorry. I didn't say the birth certificate, the death certificate. And she showed up at the very end. She got there a little late. And basically at the very end, she said, after we, like I said, we got into a shouting match. I got into a shouting match because I said, you're not going to let her go. You're not going to let her go. She told me, you need to kick everybody out. We need to talk. She told me. And then the chaplain was still there. She goes, and she looks at me, she goes, he works for them. Kick him out too. And so I turned around and I looked at him and I said, I'm sorry, could you please leave also? I felt bad because he's a chaplain, he's a man of God, but then I realized she was right.
Chaplains are not necessarily men of God.
Yeah.
They're not pastors, they're chaplains, but yeah.
But I realized, he works for them, and then so that's when they wanted to disconnect her right then and there. They wanted me to set a date right then and there. And I said, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. And they ended up putting her on palliative care, which I was not happy with. Well,
they did it against y'all's wishes?
Yes.
They made that decision. So then when they put her on palliative care, they made her a DNR against, they basically gave her palliative care and a DNR by committee rather than.
And even the following day when she passed away, because she passed away the following day at 10 o'clock in the morning, 10:30 in the morning. Even at that time, they still called us in. They called us in. We didn't even go home. We stayed in the parking lot all night long because she knew she was that in that critical care, stage. Yeah. They called us in and we were there and they asked us if they wanted us to resuscitate her. So at that point, I turned around and I told my mom, I said, you have to make this decision. I can no longer be making these decisions all on my own. It's just been so hard. I said, Mom, she is your daughter. I said, you have to make this decision because if I tell her to keep her alive, they're going to do whatever to keep her alive. That means they're going to get on her. They're going to crack her ribs. They're going to do whatever it takes to make her breathe again. And we know her lungs were not well. And her heart was, at this point, her heart was very weak. So my mom cried. We both cried. And she said, if it's time that God wants to take her, it's time. But they are not going to disconnect her. He's going to take her when he wants to take her. So we just stayed there until she passed on her own. They didn't give her any medication. They didn't disconnect her. They didn't do anything. She just passed, her breathing started to go slow. Her heart rate actually started to diminish. It was more her heart than her breathing. Her breathing was still there, but it was her heart just started going slower and slower and slower until it finally stopped.
Heidi, were you there, or who was all there when she passed? You were not allowed to be in the room, right?
I wasn't allowed in. Anna called me, told me, gave me instructions how I can make it to the window.
By this time, they had already locked the gates, so nobody could be by the window. But I had told Heidi, if you want to get close to the window, you're going to have to climb the fence.
So
And Heidi climbed it.
I jumped the fence.
It was like a 9 foot.
It was with crazy
It was
wires and
yeah,
it was
or
hard.
like an 8 foot fence, I think.
Yeah, and then I don't know why I brought a bench, but God told me to bring a bench. I did. And my sister handed it to me, and I was able to put the bench in front of the window so I could stand on it so I could see. And I was on the phone with Anna, and she put the phone next to Lupe's ear. And I was the second to the last person who spoke with her, whose voice she heard on the phone just minutes before she passed. Lisa was the last. But she was murdered. Overall, she was killed.
Talk a little bit about. I agree with you that she was murdered. She was killed. Talk about the aftermath of how old was Mateo when his mom was killed?
16.
16.
Yeah. It had been very long since he turned 16.
So talk a little bit about, I mean, this had to have been there was a huge impact. And Anna, if you could just kind of get closer to Heidi a little bit there. Yeah. That how everybody's going to want to know what happened to Mateo. Did he come to live with you?
Yes. At first, he went to live with my parents. It was just a lot that was going on. A lot that was going on in my family as well. So there was a lot of changes that had to be done. So initially he went to go be with my parents. I went to live with my parents because at that time, it was just hard for all of us. And I stayed with my parents for a month because I just felt it took that long to actually do the funeral for my sister because of COVID and all of that. So I stayed there until the funeral. So we were there. He didn't go to school for about a month. Then after that, he was being bused from where my parents live to Fresno. So that's about an hour, about an hour and a half. He was being bused not daily, like 3 times a week. He was attending school. The school was very helpful. They arranged the busing so that he was able to still attend school sometimes and then stay home other times. He was doing some work online. And then eventually I moved to Fresno, back to Fresno with him. So he was able to stay in his own home and stay in his same school because I was in the process of moving out of the county.
Mm-hmm.
I was moving about 3 hours away. So everything changed. Everything changed. For me, everything changed. Things changed for him. Obviously, as far as his mom, my sister was a single mom. He had no communication with his dad. So I think it'd been like a couple of years since he'd seen his dad, so it wasn't like he was gonna step right in and take over, because he was never there. So yeah, right now he's still home. He's going to Fresno State. He's working. He works at Fresno State. So I put him in counseling right away. So he started counseling, grief counseling, and then, weekly counseling right away from when his mom passed, up until about last year. But it's been hard.
Yeah, there was a huge impact to him. And then how are your parents?
They miss her. It's not the same. There was only two of us, so we used to split the responsibilities. But now it's just me.
Yeah.
With they're older. They're in their 80s, so it's right after that. My dad had been working. He worked a full-time job. Shortly after she passed, he was kind of forced into retirement. They told him, you need to be with your family. He's like, you just lost a daughter. You need to be with your family. And so he ended up having to retire. They gave him a pension, and they were really nice to him. But I think they realized he needs to be with his family. And my dad needed to be at work, to deal with it. So it was kind of hard for him. All of a sudden, like, I lost my daughter, now I lost my job. So it was tough.
Anna has been absolutely amazing, because, as you know, Lupe was a single mother, right? Lupe and Mateo, they were inseparable. I mean, Lupe was Mateo's life.
Mm.
And I thank God that Anna, stepped up. She became not only, mother, but I mean, she had to hold everything together. And she absolutely did an awesome job. He graduated, from high school, and she did
with honors.
And she did everything, that Lupe, would have done. She's, been there. She's been mom.
Yeah.
And she's done a wonderful job.
I was just telling Heidi the other day that, he's not perfect. He makes me mad sometimes, and I feel guilty sometimes because I get mad at my sister, because I say, why do I have to go through this with Mateo? It should be you, and I feel guilty because I'm like, she's not here. Why am I mad at her? But, it's just this feeling sometimes. It's like, why are you gone? You should be, going through this, or, I should be here holding your hand while you're going through this,
Yeah.
But who's holding my hand? You should be here,
So it just passed the 4-year mark when all of this happened.
Right.
And it's obviously very fresh, like it just happened. And I hear that a lot. I even feel it in my own story, right? Like, feels like it just happened. What has 4 years later been like for both of you? I mean, Heidi, I know we'll get to all the things that you're never letting it go, but Anna, you've been holding the family together, and Heidi's been driving for justice. So 4 years later, where where are you at emotionally in the fight for justice? The things that have happened.
I mean, honestly, it's just living one day at a time. Honestly, it's hard for me to look too far into the future. I try not to look to the past. The Lord doesn't want us always looking to the past, because He doesn't want us to be living in the past. He wants us to be living in the future, to be living in the present, to be living in the future, But it's really hard sometimes to go too far into the future because I'm just trying to survive the day. I just finished, I'm in the process of finishing my master's degree. So I was able to go back and do that. I started this program 25 years ago.
We're so proud of her.
And I'm like, I need to get this done because, we need better. We need more. I'm also in the process of wanting to study a little bit more about law because I know that we need to be educated. Definitely need to be educated about what is going on. The world is changing. The world is changing faster than we can comprehend in all aspects, in everything. It's not even about what side you're on, whether you're on the left side or you're on the right side. It's just changing. And we need to be able to be educated, not just educated with education, but we need to be close to God. We need to be close to God because we need to fight the devil with God, with God's words, because this is a spiritual battle more than anything. This is a spiritual battle. And
for sure.
He's coming to kill, steal, and destroy. And in order to be able to fight him, we need to be armed with the armor of God. And that's the best thing that we could do.
Yeah,
for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So Heidi, you've been on, that's how we met. You've been on this quest for justice for Lupe, and this single event kind of changed your life as well. And I want you to, did you know right away that they killed your best friend, or did it take you a little bit of learning about remdesivir, or did you know right away?
When Lupe went into the hospital, when she communicated that they were discriminating against her because she was unvaccinated, we had planned to go to an event in Los Angeles 2 days after, she went into hospital. We had this planned for a while. I went to the event. And I knew there were going to be a lot of important people there. And I said, I don't care if it takes me all day. I am going to tell everybody. I'm going to find someone that will help Lupe because they're discriminating against her because she's unvaccinated. And finally, a gentleman who was running for Senator, James Bradley, pulled me aside and said, "What's going on?" And I told him, and he connected me with a medical freedom fighter, Susanna Shield. And she's the one that told me about remdesivir. So at that point, I remember on the way home driving from Los Angeles just in tears, on the phone with, Lisa and everybody else, like, they're killing her, they're giving her remdesivir, and I explained what it did, to the body and everything. So it was at that point that I knew that they weren't doing things in the best interest of her. I had no idea to the level that I know now.
Right.
How it was a coordinated effort to kill American citizens on U.S. soil in American hospitals. 1.6 million fell victim to the program.
How long did it take you to? Well, we're still learning more, aren't we? Still, even 4 years later, so it's an evolving thing. When did you start doing the signs outside of the hospital for her?
Pretty much instantly.
Mhm.
I called, a major news radio station. It was, me and Danette, Nurse Chrissy. Danette lost her mother,
Mm-hmm.
Judith Neeland. And we said, we have to warn the community. And so we arranged to go in and give an interview. I was, the only one there in person, and he was going to pull them in on the phone. But once the first few words out of my mouth, he kicked us out of the station. I know now why, because even, the conservative, talk shows, the conservative, it's not free speech platform. We were just trying to save lives, and they silenced us instantly. So the constitutionalist on 1550, he brought us in, and we were able, to get the message out, at least on the, AM radios. So we're like, we need, they're murdering people, we need to take it one step further. So we had a 14-foot sign made, warning people about the protocols and to refuse remdesivir. And to this day, we're 5 years in now, and we're still holding signs in front of the hospitals. And they even in 2022 launched missiles. We have that video over my house to explode, to use as a scare tactic to stop us from warning the public. This is all a very intentional, planned execution of, killing as many American citizens as they can. And, what people need to understand is these protocols are still being used. As you know, Gail, we, help save a 2-year-old.
Just yeah.
Recently, and just last week alone, you received 4 calls, for help of people receiving.
Sunday, yes, and it's October of 2025 at this point. So we are literally still they're still using remdesivir. So you are correct.
Yeah, that's why it's so important, for everybody to share your story, right? Because your story can help save lives. The only tool we have at this point is to warn people, to share the information, because they're not going to stop killing people.
Right. And people need, and we need, I think there's still a myth out there that COVID did all this damage and not the protocols. And so it is very, very important to, for people to tell their stories, because once one story backs up another story, backs up another story, backs up another. And I think between us, we probably know about 2,000 victims of hospital protocols or family members of victims, and they all need to tell their stories. And there's 1.6 million people that actually got protocols and died in the hospitals across the nation. So quite a few. I mean, like over 125,000 in California, where y'all are, and over 100,000 in Texas, where I am. those stories can really make a difference. And so it is very important. And we want people to go to betrayalprojectusa.org, tell their stories, and also be prepared. Be prepared. You can have ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, budesonide, nebulizers, those types of things ahead of time. You can even have oxygen or an oxygen concentrator ahead of time, because most people went to the hospital for fear of the oxygen part, right? And so if you're I always say this too, if you ask your doctor what will they give you if you get COVID or something like it, if they don't say ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, and budesonide, get yourself a new doctor, because that doctor ain't working for you. That doctor doesn't care about you, and they're part of the problem. So, and of course, Heidi is also a board member of Betrayal Project USA, just so people know. She's a founding member like myself, and we created this org to be run by victims for victims, because we understand the mission, we understand the loss, we understand the experience and the chaos, and the fact that there has not been justice, and there needs to be transparency and accountability for what's happened. And I'm really sorry about your sister Lupe. She's mentioned all the time. Heidi will never let her memory be forgotten, as you know, because she is a tiger when it comes to getting justice for her and stopping the killing in the hospitals there, and rallying the troops. I want to end with this. Any other words you have to say to people that you want them to know, but also just if you could give me a favorite memory of Lupe.
And just choosing one would be hard, you know. I have a lot of, oh gosh. I guess my sister wasn't the type of person that was very emotional about things, but she would listen. And I knew that no matter what, she always had my back. No matter what problem I had, no matter what was going on, she was going to be 100% on my side. And even if we just sat in silence, she would be there for me. She didn't have to say anything sometimes. We just would sit there, and I knew that I felt protected. I knew that I had somebody. And sometimes now I just feel so alone, because I'm like, who do I go to? Who can I go and call? Like, it's just a bond, you know, that you have with the sibling, especially if they're your only sibling. You know, it's a special bond that you have with them, and when they're gone, there's nothing that can replace that. Nothing. So I miss being able to just watch a show with her and just be with just her presence, you know.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't have to talk about anything. It's just that presence that's there, you know, or that we grew up together, so we knew what the family dynamic was about. We would just give each other that look, like, oh my gosh, like we knew that communication of this is happening, or, you know, it was just that look that you give that person. It's like we knew what was going on, and we knew how to talk to each other without even saying a word.
Yeah.
I miss that because I don't have that anymore. Or I miss picking up the phone and saying, "Hey, do you remember this? I don't remember what this is about. What is this?" Or I forgot who did this or who did that. I can't do that anymore because she's gone.
What about you, Heidi?
I miss everything about her. Like, Anna said, she always had your back. If you were her friend or family member, you knew she always had your back, no matter what. And, I miss sitting around the table and having tea with her and just talking, and Saturday nights, Friday nights, watching movies on the couch,
Mm.
Working on campaigns with her, going to dinner, everything, traveling. She's very missed by everybody in our community. And I can't wait, until one day we're all together again.
She was definitely very young, very beautiful,
Yes.
very full of life, and I am incredibly sorry, and I'm going to encourage people to share this video everywhere. And if they have a story, have courage, tell your story. It matters. We need to make sure that these martyrs these hospital martyrs are not forgotten, and that we get accountability. So thank you very much for telling the story.
Thank you, Cal.
Thank you.